In the next extension to our shooting game app, we are going to add additional sounds that would be generated when the Android guy is shot down by a bullet. So in this case, when the Android guy is shut down and there is an explosion, we would generate an explosion sound to indicate that the Android guy has been shut down. So to do that, as an example, so when the Android guy is shut down, you can hear the explosion sound in the background. Like that. So how do we generate sounds like this on the fly when some event happens? That's the next part of the extension to the shooting game. To implement this, we are going to make use of another class that is provided by Android Framework called as the Sound Pool class. As usual, go to the course site, download the zip file, unzip, and then import the project into Android Studio. Once you do that, you will notice that we have a new class included in this project called as Sound Effects. Go ahead and open the soundeffects.java file and also the shootinggame.java and drawview.java files. So this is where we're going to do the modifications. Let's first concentrate on the sound effects class. Now when you open this class, you will notice that I declare it as public enum sound effects. This is a way to create a Java singleton class. In addition, you will include the statement called instance at the top of the class. So this way we create a singleton class. What this means is that there will be only one instance of this class in this application, and this class can be accessible from many other classes. In addition, in this class, we are going to make use of a sound class provided by Android Framework called as the Sound Pool. The Sound Pool class enables us to generate short bursts of sounds with very little latency. This is different from the media player class that we have seen earlier. After this exercise, we would discuss the distinction between the sound pool and the media player class and where each one is applicable in more detail. Now, examining the code here, you see that I have implemented two methods here called as the setContext and the playSound method, which contain appropriate support for using and generating sounds within our application. Now, in the setContext method, I will construct the sound pool object here and then initialize the sound pool object with the sounds that I want to generate. So the way the sound pool object is initialized depends on which version of Android you're using. If you're using Android version Lollipop or higher, then the first group of statements is the way you initialize the sound pool object. If you're using the earlier version of Android, then the sound pool object is initialized as shown in the statement below in the else part of the if statement. So here I am specifying that if the Android version build is greater than Lollipop, then the way the sound pool object is initialized is that first we create something called the audio attributes object, and this audio attributes object we set up a few parameters here. Now you don't need to worry about what these are. This is a way to set up a few parameters for the attributes. If you would like to, you can read the documentation in more detail. Let me more concentrate on how the sound pool object itself is built. The sound pool object is built by calling the sound pool builder, and then I set up the maximum number of streams to be 5, which means that I can generate 5 different sounds simultaneously at a single point of time. And then the second parameter, I supply the audio attributes which are derived from the previous object that I created, and then I build the sound pool object. If I am using the earlier Android platforms, the way sound pool is initialized is to specify the max streams here. That's why I have the number 5 here, and then I specify the sound volume by specifying that it's on the stream music, and then a few parameters here. In addition to the sound pool, we will load in several sound samples. In this exercise, I am loading in one single sample, the explosion sound. Now I have already included the explosion sound sample into the raw folder. So in here I say m sound pool load, and then specify the explosion sound here, and then also specify the other values, and then I am using a sound pool map in order to keep track of the sounds that I load into the sound pool object. The reason why I'm using this hash map is that if I need to play back sounds, then it is very easy for me to specify which particular sound I want to play. So I'm taking the help of a hash map for that purpose. So I am putting the hash map and then specifying that the sound pool, when it is loaded, it'll return a reference to the loaded value, and that I am storing in my hash map. So subsequently, if I need to play the explosion sound, I will be able to easily recall that from using the hash map. And in addition, I am setting up the audio manager is used for supplying and specifying various properties related to playback of the audio. In particular, I want to be able to play the sound at the maximum volume that is allowed for the music streaming, and that is specified by these 2 statements here. Now, how do I play the sound when I need it? Now, to do that, I am going to make use of the play sound method that I have supplied here. When the play sound method is called, specifying which particular sound should be played back, then I will use the sound pool object and then ask it to play that particular sound by specifying from the sound pool map the reference to that particular sound that I have already loaded in the sound explosion. Okay, and I specify the volume at which I want the sound to be played on the stereo output of the device. So these are the various parameters that I set up inside my sound effects class here. Now let's see how we actually make use of this in practice. Now, before I go off, if you need to load additional sounds, then you will use the same procedure for loading in additional sounds into the sound pool object. So when we do that, then the sound pool will then decode this sound and then store it in memory, ready for playback with very little latency. So that's the reason why we make use of the sound pool class for this purpose. Now, to make use of the sound effects class in the shootinggame.java file, we are going to go in and then set the context for the shooting game for the sound effects class. So how do we do that? So when you get into the shooting game activity, in the onCreate method, you would see this to-do statement here. We're going to replace that with the appropriate statement to set the context for my sound effects class. So how do we do that? I have already substituted the to do comment with the appropriate code, as you can see here. So if you have a singleton class, this is how you access the singleton class. So you would specify the name of the class and instance. You see the use of the instance that I declared in the class there, and then you call the method, the setContext method, and then supply this, meaning that this activity as the context for this sound effects class here. Now we are similarly going to go and modify the drawView.java file and to generate the sound when it is needed. So if I walk into the drawView.java file, then you will notice that inside the drawGameboard method, I want to generate the explosion sound right at the time when the collision between the bullet and the Android guy occurs, and then I'm replacing both of them with the explosion image. Right there I want to also generate the explosion sound. So that's why you see that I have put in a to-do statement right there to indicate to me that I need to generate the explosion sound. So how do we generate the explosion sound? Or rather, how do we make use of the sound effects class to generate the explosion sound? I have now replaced the comment with the appropriate code in order to generate the explosion sound. So here you notice that I say sound effects.instance. So this is how I access the singleton class, and then call the play sound method, and then supply the parameter sound effects.sound explosion. So this specifies to the sound effects class that I want to generate the explosion sound at this particular juncture. So this is how I would generate the explosion sound. So now that we have completed updating the code, let's go ahead and execute this application and see the result. Once your application starts running, you can now see that the application generates the explosion sound whenever we shoot down the Android guy. This completes the exercise.